It's my body, it's not a condo, Cheryl. At some point, I'm just hoping that logic will enter the chat. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam. So just like everyone else in this realm, I have had a tendency to focus on our fat acceptance, actually fat TikTok influencers, but today I wanted to change it up just a little bit and talk about thin influencers and TikTokers who promote intuitive eating. It is hella problematic, and I think that we should talk about it. So in general, I find this type of content problematic because it is very clear that these women have never lived in an actual plus-sized or morbidly obese fat body. They promote this program, intuitive eating, and give their advice like everyone in the world was just like them. A mid-size or average-sized body just trying to lose 10 to 20 pounds, putting themselves on a 1,200 calorie diet, and then from there, they create their content. If you haven't figured it out already, I do not think intuitive eating is for everyone, particularly folks who are morbidly obese or have been overweight for a long time, or who struggle with binge eating disorder. And before you get into it, before you angrily type in those comments to let me know that I don't know what I'm talking about, I have the book. And you can tell by its yellowness and worn out spine, I've read it a few times, and I have worked through these principles and tried to make it work, and it absolutely did not. So don't come at me. I have read your holy Bible. The other reason that I am taking aim at thin influencers today, and probably in my next video, just to look forward to the future, is that I think they are no better than the diet industry they claim to hate. These thin influencers have found the holy grail for their business, which is a trending movement, and they are profiting off of it and profiting off of vulnerable people. And that just really grinds my gears because that is the exact same thing that the diet industry does. So today we are going to be talking about Sammy from the TikTok account Find Food Freedom. And you know, this one hurts me. I finally found a Sam that I didn't want to welcome into the Sam clan. There are a few of you in the comments, a few of you have pointed out other influencers named Sam, like Sam Starts Here, and I am like, yes, another Sam, let's do this thing. But Sammy from Find Food Freedom, she just can't sit with us.
You can't sit with us!
Sammy is the owner of Find Food Freedom. It is not just a cleverly titled username for TikTok. That is actually the name of her business. If you spend any time on her TikTok page, she will tell you over and over and over again, she is a registered dietitian, a licensed intuitive eating coach, and a certified personal trainer. She will literally say it so much that you just want to throw up.
You're enjoying yourself. Oh, yeah, that looks like you're enjoying. Okay.
And she, like many other fat acceptance TikTokers, is known for this weird, high-pitched, nasally noise when she finds you particularly annoying or if you make a comment that is not in her line of thought. Now, much like the jock scientist, Sammy will openly talk about her past as a weight-centric dietitian, and she even states that she only started doing the work of unlearning the weight-centric model during the pandemic so that she could come out on the other side fat positive and smashing diet culture. So I just want to start by saying I scrolled Find Food Freedom's Instagram, and I found photos of Sammy at her heaviest. And now, while I don't want to invalidate what she's saying, I do genuinely think that she probably struggled with binge eating and binge drinking the way that she says. But she's still an average sized body. You can see that she was never actually obese. And she'll admit that she doesn't know what it's like to live in a fat body.
You are so right. I cannot even pretend to understand what it's like to live in a larger body. Now, let's break it down that I recognize that I have thin privilege. I reside in a straight size body. I do not understand what it's like to be in a larger body.
But she has no real understanding of what it's like to live in a fat body. Her binge eating and drinking, for all of its worth, didn't land her in a body like mine. And just because I'm feeling a little snarky after having to sit through hours of her content, it did make me laugh to watch TikToks like this.
Good morning, this is my official petition to stop using the phrase clean eating. What is that? What is that? It's freaking food, dude. It's fat, protein, carbohydrate. There might be more of one of those in one thing and less in another, but it's not good, it's not bad, and by you donning this cap of I'm a clean eater, yes I am. When you go out in public and you want to eat things that don't automatically align in that clean eating arena, you feel like you have to jump through hoops justifying yourself for making that food choice when you don't owe anyone an explanation, not even your brain, okay? It's not good, it's not bad, it's just food.
Where she makes fun of clean eating when she still has posts like this, hashtag clean eating, on her Instagram. Girl. Now, the same is true of Sammy that was true of the jock scientist. Not all of her messaging is toxic. In fact, a lot of her messaging about not treating weight loss like a behavior, but rather correcting behaviors that could lead to weight loss, was how I ended up breaking my binge eating cycle to begin with. And I think it's effective, and it's a message that people do need to understand. But that doesn't mean that Sammy isn't problematic. Let's talk about it. I'm going to start with what I think is the most problematic part of her content, and that is treating every calorie deficit like it's a 1,200 calorie deficit.
Let's talk about diets that don't work. Calorie restriction, or just restricting food in general, works until you become really fucking hungry and end up eating everything in sight and develop a horrible relationship with food. But when you're dieting, aren't you also dying?
As you can see, every single time she mentions a calorie deficit or pokes at a calorie deficit, she literally says 1,200 calories. And while I appreciate her telling people not to eat at a 1,200 calorie deficit, because that's just crazy, I do think it's problematic to assume that everyone is automatically cutting to 1,200 calories and equating any calorie deficit to starvation. Because it's possible to be in a calorie deficit and not starving. It's exactly what I'm doing. The reason this is problematic for me is that Sammy often openly admits that she has thin privilege and has never resided in a larger body. Also, again, just because I'm feeling particularly snarky, what the fuck are they talking about when they say resides in a larger body or resides in a much larger body? Like, it's my body, it's not a condo, Cheryl. Anyway, she is openly telling an audience that includes obese and morbidly obese people that they shouldn't be in a calorie deficit, and that calorie deficits always equal starvation. I had been seeing a lot where we were seeing people talking about bodies going into starvation mode, and I was like, where are people getting this crazy nonsense? Straight from diet culture that's disguised as anti-diet culture. People like Sammy are creating those talking points. She's also demonized calorie counting, saying that by putting weight on an external source to help control your hunger, you are learning not to rely on yourself, and that's why she thinks people shouldn't count calories. I would argue that this isn't necessarily true. And this is why I wouldn't work with a counselor or a dietitian or a professional like Sammy. I no longer obsess about food the way that I used to. I haven't cut anything out of my diet. I still eat everything that's available. I'm much more mindful about it. And I pay attention to how the food makes me feel. But I still need calorie counting to help me relearn what a portion size even is. Because years of residing in a larger body have destroyed any intuition that I could ever have. in addition to the chemicals and processed food assisting in that destruction. I cannot rely on my body in that way because I actively destroyed it. It is my fault, and I have to live with that and reckon with that every day, and that's okay. But my point is, I didn't go to a diet of just whole foods right off the bat because I knew that that wouldn't work for me. So when I eat processed food that has those chemicals and those triggers to be addictive, I need calorie counting, I need portion sizes to help me learn what is appropriate. Like you can sit down and eat the whole bag, but that's where the problem lies. So she's promoting both. Don't cut anything, still eat these things, these processed things in moderation, but I don't know what moderation is. And that's where calorie counting and weighing my food helps me without being obsessive. It's a learning tool and a guide, not the end all be all, the way it would be for someone who's in a mid-sized body trying to lose 20 pounds. They're going to have to be very strict and cut things out to lose those 20 pounds. Not me. That's not what I need to do because I have more than that to lose. Way more. And as I watched her TikTok content and saw how she eats regularly, I understood why she would think this is such great advice. Because Sammy has control of her diet. She's regularly eating crunchy salads, she eats a lot of whole foods, and yes, she occasionally eats like one slice of pizza, multiple slices of pizza for a one-night dinner or buffalo chicken dip. But what she fails to comprehend is that, yeah, you ate that way one meal one day, but for someone who's morbidly obese, who's eating fast food 3 times a day, your diet is unrealistic, even if it includes some junk food here or there and not actually counting your portion sizes. You eating and not counting your portion sizes is not equal to what not counting my portion sizes would look like for me in this body. It's clear watching that she has an understanding of her body, an understanding of portion sizes, an understanding of when she's hungry, when she's not, and that's great, but I don't have that, and neither do people in her audience, but she's still just promoting it to everyone. And that message can cast doubt for people because you know what? Watching her content the way that I did cast doubt for me. Maybe I need to give intuitive eating a try again. And that is why it's problematic. And if you thought I was getting angry in that little spiel, wait till you see this.
I want to know from you, what is one food that you forbid yourself to eat and that actually scares you to keep inside your house? I want to challenge you to go get that food this week. Take yourself out on a solo date or with a friend and go try your forbidden fear food. Comment below.
She encouraged people on TikTok to go out and get their forbidden food or their trigger food and keep it in their house and see how it goes for them. I was so angry when I saw this TikTok that I actually had to close out of everything on my computer and go to bed. When I was first breaking my binge eating disorder, if I had stumbled across this TikTok, it would have been all of my progress straight out the window. Because you know, keeping a forbidden food or a trigger food in your house is going to trigger you. And I was not in a strong enough place when I was recovering that I could do that. It would have sent me into a tailspin. I would have gone into days, weeks, months long binge. I just can't get over how massively irresponsible it is to publish things on a TikTok where you are openly bragging about how many followers you have. If this is how you work with your clients that you know in a one-on-one setting, kudos. But don't be out on a public platform telling wide audiences that you do not know to do this. It is so irresponsible and it's actively harming people. So you know what? I'm offended. Take it down. And then just to add to the madness of this segment, she has a TikTok comparing wanting to lose weight to being tall and wanting her as a dietitian to help you shave inches off your height. Just think about how ridiculously stupid that sounds. Is there help for these people? I don't know. All right, the next thing that really got me fired up when I was going through Sammy's content was this.
Okay, so I just posted a previous video about people who say like, but I'm concerned about their health, pretending to care about people's health. When you don't care about people's health, you're just commenting on their body and you don't care about their health. And I wanted to kind of do a follow-up to that real quick because I'm thinking about it. You would never say that on a picture of me. There were times in my life where didn't move my body, as in scheduled working out for years, would binge eat, abused alcohol, definitely didn't have proper coping mechanisms in place to deal with extreme emotions. My cholesterol was like super fucking elevated. But again, nobody would ever say, but I'm concerned about her health because I was in a smaller body. Thin privilege. But you'll go see someone in a larger body, right? Resides in a larger body, and you'll say, but I'm concerned about their health. You know nothing about their fucking behaviors. Literally nothing. So you don't need to be concerned about someone's health when you look at the size of their body, because you don't know somebody's health by looking at the size of their body. Hope this helps. As per my last video that I just put up talking about thin privilege, let's talk about a perfect example that I just experienced. So I'm trying to fit in basically every doctor's appointment that's ever needed or existed before popping this child out. And I was just at my dermatologist appointment. My dermatologist was previously a dietitian. I've met with her multiple times. She knows that I'm a dietitian. I've tried to explain to her that I work more in the eating disorder, intuitive eating realm, but she's more classically trained. And so we were talking about some different signs and symptoms and things that were coming up for me. And of course, the inevitable comment, well, it looks like you're at least keeping healthy, with your body weight and your size. It looks like you're definitely healthy. That, my friends, is thin privilege. You know nothing about my body based on the size of it. Weight is not a sole determinant of health. So, for example, if somebody in a larger body was on that table naked, getting all their moles checked, and they resided in a larger body, then she would make the assumption that, well, you're not staying healthy based on the size of your body. Ding, ding, ding. Weight stigma, fat shaming, oppression.
Where she is talking about how we wouldn't judge people, or doctors wouldn't judge people in Sammy's size body and tell her that she's unhealthy. I don't know how to make this clear, so let me get real close to my microphone here. Let me look you right in the eyes, little Sammy, and say, of course they wouldn't. You live in an average sized body, girl. Everyone just take a deep breath with me. I have talked about this before when I'm talking about fat acceptance, when I'm talking about the book Fearing the Black Body. Something that these thin influencers, thin authors are doing is being purposefully vague. Of course, no one would say that to you. You're literally in an average sized body. You're in a mid-sized body. You are not in a morbidly obese or overtly thin body. And for some reason, they always like to leave that overtly thin portion out of it. Because you better bet your ass if someone struggling with an eating disorder, a restrictive eating disorder, like Eugenia Cooney, went to the doctor, do you think her doctor's not like, ma'am, you're unhealthy and you need to gain weight? If it's true that a doctor says that to someone who's too thin, like Eugenia Cooney, why aren't we also standing up for her? Body positivity is for everyone, right? She loves her body. She's happy in her body regardless of what we think about it. So why aren't we standing up for that? Don't worry, I'll give you a minute to think about it. Again, they'll never answer questions like these because it just points out their flawed logic and circular thinking. Yeah, when someone's in an average or mid-sized body, you can't judge their health because you don't know anything about them. They could be healthy, they could be lucky, eating McDonald's 3 times a day, you would never know. But if someone is on the spectrum of much too thin or much too fat, it is very clear that something is going on there. And I've said it before, if mental health is part of health and mental health is eating disorders like binge eating disorder or anorexia, then you can tell that they're unhealthy because their mental health being bad is what got them to this state. I don't understand why that is so hard to piece together. And I'm feeling a bit like a broken record in my latest videos, but at some point I'm just hoping that logic will enter the chat. Now, she also had a few TikToks where she is, again, openly being vague, and she just says, you know, if I help them do all these things, fix their mental health, help them alleviate stress, and they don't lose weight, that's fine. Some bodies are just meant to be fat. But again, she never defines that. Is she saying that some people are just supposed to be morbidly obese? Because that's definitely not the truth. But in my opinion, she has to keep it vague, even if she doesn't believe that people should just be morbidly obese. Because if she was out here saying otherwise, she wouldn't be able to profit off this movement. She's got to keep bringing in that fat acceptance and fat liberation money somehow. I also just wanted to add this TikTok to the mix.
It's come to my attention that people think that thin privilege is not a real thing. Well, let me give you an example and explain how it is a real thing. I can post a video of myself eating dessert, waffles covered in peanut butter and blueberries, and all of my favorite foods. And people say, oh, thank you so much, this is so helpful. And then some of my friends and colleagues that reside in larger bodies can put up the exact same videos. And their comment section will say, you shouldn't be eating that. You don't deserve to eat that. Maybe if you don't eat that, you'll lose some weight. Has it ever occurred to you that somebody in a smaller body can eat those foods and they don't randomly just turn into somebody in a larger body?
I don't even know. Like, is this real life? They don't eat those foods in a thinner body and then just magically become a larger body. Do you know how calories even work? How do you think I went from being an average-sized person to where I am now? Want to explain that? Because I can definitely tell you, I ate those foods. I could eat the foods that you show that you eat, and I would end up in a larger body. I don't understand why that's so hard. And this TikTok just blew my mind, honestly. Like, there's nothing else I can add to this conversation. And here's a short list of other problematic things that Sammy has done, because if I went into depth on all of them, this video would be a feature film. She's used Lindo Bacon as a source for citation.
So let's take it to the research, and I'm just gonna pull it right out of the book so that way I don't fuck it up. All right, let's dig in.
She's promoted other problematic and toxic fat acceptance folks, including the Fat Doctor UK.
Dr. Natasha Larmy is someone who I adore. She's just recently switched over from weight inclusive care to health at every size. She's so passionate. Go follow her at Fat Doctor UK.
She's called herself a medical professional.
Life hacks that just make sense from a medical professional.
And she makes a lot of the same claims as our fat acceptance folks, but without citations.
Because we know that dieting is the #1 predictor of weight gain. We also know that diets have a 95% failure rate. We also know that dieting is the #1 predictor of weight gain.
All right, if you thought I was snarky before, buckle up because you're in for a wild ride. After watching all of her content where she talks about having to acknowledge that she has thin privilege, I just want to throw these thoughts out there. And I guess you could call it a hot take, but it's genuinely how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about and trying to wrap my head around when I'm talking about these things. None of the people I've reviewed in depth are actively fighting racism on their TikTok pages. They only mention Black women when they claim that they started this movement, and more offensively when they say that Blackness is equal to fatness. Could that be because it's easier for them to just steal all of the labor and talking points created by Black Lives Matters to uplift this movement and say that eugenics is happening and say that rights are being taken away when that's not actually happening, and allows them to ignore the more heated topic, and so that they can use this movement to profit off of while shielding themselves with the bodies of Black women? And I mean, that is actively what they are doing. And they're profiting off of it and making big bucks, while simultaneously sort of making it look like they care. And then people feel like they can't call them out because they have these sort of protections around them. It really bothers me that instead of standing behind a valid movement, they've created this alternate reality where fat people are being killed and who are being stripped of their rights when that isn't actually happening. In the real world, America at least, I know Americans tend to be American-centric. I'm very sorry to my European and other country followers. People are actively losing their rights. Is it difficult to be fat in this world? Yes. But the claims of them not having access to jobs and healthcare is just egregious to me. I've been able to get jobs. I've always had access to healthcare. Sometimes I didn't utilize it when I should have because I knew that the doctors were going to judge me, and when I was in a space where I couldn't handle that in my own mental state, I would just pretend that I could fix it myself. I get it. What I don't get is why we're putting so much time and thought and energy into a movement that doesn't really need it, and ignoring a real movement that actually does need it. So I guess I'll leave you with just think about that for a minute. Is it easier for them to claim they're undoing the work of internalized fat phobia than it is for them to do the work of being actively anti-racist? Because they're not promoting those things at all. Only fatness, and only as it relates to their business. Just think about it and be sure to share your thoughts with me in the comments below. This is something that has been boiling under my skin since I started making these sorts of videos, and at some point it needed to spill out, and I guess Sammy and her need to acknowledge her thin privilege just really brought that out of me. Anyway, that's enough snark from me today. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye!